Today, I'm going to be looking at the KMA Machines Endgame pedal, and I'm going to tell you why I think it is the absolute best pedal that anyone can use, whether you are going with a real amp, going analog, going digital, or a mixture of both. I'll go over some sound samples of some of the different things that you can do on it, and I'm going to show you my use case, how I use it, both with using a real amp with 4-cable method with an HX stomp, having a mixture of digital. So I have the best of both worlds. Anyways, here's the KMA Machines Endgame pedal, and let's check it out. So let's go over some features of the pedal. We will start on this side. There's way more to this pedal than you would ever believe. So start here, we have input jack. That's going to be your main input. Just below that, we have a through. So if you want to send your guitar signal in and then have your dry guitar signal sent out, it's going to be sent out of there. You have an input gain control. And over here, there is a little LED light that will light up when you're clipping the input, so you can adjust that. Just below that, we have power amp mode. This not only has IRs and cabinet simulation, you can also do power amp simulation, so you can cycle between, I believe, 3 different types of simulation of power tubes. Then you have a stereo effects loop. Moving on to the front of the pedal, you have one foot switch on the right that will activate or deactivate the effects loop. The other side is a stereo doubler. Up top on the left, you have a width control for the stereo doubler. So when your signal is sent out and you are using the double effect, you can vary if you want it spread completely stereo, completely up the middle, somewhere in between. On the right, you have a wheel where you can pick which IR you are using. There are 3 that are already in the pedal that come with it when you buy it, and then you have 2 slots where you can upload your own, and you can have different ones on the right or left if you would like. I usually like the creamback setting. The options that they give you are a vintage 30 speaker, a greenback, and a creamback. So those are your options there, and then you can load in your own. Moving over here, we have an aux mix. So this has an auxiliary in, 3.5 millimeter jack, so we'll get into that a little more later, but you can adjust the volume of that. You have an ambience control, so basically what that is kind of like just a little bit of reverb that's added to it. Just kind of makes it feel more, helps sit in the mix a little bit better when you add a little bit of that in. And then here, this you can adjust whether things are pre and post. So one is for the stereo doubler. You can choose whether that's pre or post the effects loop. And then this is the cabinet simulation, whether or not it's pre or post the effects loop. Over here, you've got 2 XLR outs, 2 balanced 1/4 inch outs. You have a ground lift switch. You have an XLR output level control. Then you have 2 headphone outs with a level control on there. Moving to the back, it's powered 9 volts. I believe it takes about 480 milliamps of power, if I remember correctly. Connects via USB-C for doing updating and for loading in the IRs if you would like. And the last thing is it also has Bluetooth. So this thing is insane. You can stream Bluetooth to it, so if you want to play along to a song that you're working on, you can Bluetooth to this, have it at the end of your pedal board, and play along with it. The other thing that's crazy is there's switches on the inside. If you take the back off, you can choose whether or not the Bluetooth signal goes to both the XLRs and the 1/4 inch outs, or just the XLRs. So you could run your guitar signal to front of house if you wanted to, or in a situation at home, let's say you're using 2 powered speakers, you could send XLR out into one for your guitar, and then 1/4 inch out into the other, and only have the song or the Bluetooth that you're playing come through one, and the other one be your full guitar signal. So that's all the ins and outs. Go ahead and hook it back up to my pedal board and show you how I'm using it and show my setup and what I do. It's kind of a blend between Using a real amp, I use this PRS MT15 amp and 4-cable method with an HX stomp. I'll have to show you on my pedal board how I incorporate this to go to front of house. So instead of miking up the cab, I send this to front of house. So I'll get that hooked up, get some shots of this, and show you how I use it. Okay, so this is kind of a janky setup, but it's the best that I could work with at the moment. I'm going to run you through how I have my rig set up with the amp, running through the HX stomp and through the Endgame. So my guitar input goes into the input on the HX stomp. I then go out of the send on the effects loop on the HX stomp. I go into my 2 drive pedals. I have a Duke of Tone and a PRS Horsemeat pedal. I go then from there out to the front of the MT15. Okay, so now I've gone in, I've hit my compressor that I have in the HX stomp. I go out the send of the effects loop, and my drive pedals go into the front of the amp so that I have my drive pedals in front of the preamp. I then take the send out of the effects loop on the MT15, and I send that out, and I go back in to the return on the effects loop of the HX stomp. Now, what essentially I've done is taken the preamp of the MT15. It is now effectively in the HX stomp preset. Next, this is the most vital step and why this KMA Machines Endgame pedal is so cool. So what I do is I split the output because this has a left and right output out of the HX stomp. One of the outputs goes out and back into the return of the MT15. That then allows me to have a cabinet hooked up, and I have stage volume coming out of an actual cabinet. And then the other output goes out and goes into the KMA Machines Endgame pedal. What this does is I have everything, reverbs and everything after the effects loop block. So when it goes into this, I can then send out this. It basically acts as a direct box to go to front of house with the IRs that are attached. So I can then have my speaker on stage. I just run a little 1x12. It's not overly loud. And then I can go direct to front of house, and our sound guy has complete control of my level and my gain. One other thing that I do is I'll turn down the volume of the HX stomp to like half because this amp can get so loud. And then I can turn up the input gain on the KMA Machines Endgame or the XLR out volume, and I can have a quiet stage if needed, if we're playing a small venue, and still send plenty of signal out of the Endgame to front of house. Then I can use the stereo doubler if I want to. I don't really. We usually just run mono, but if I wanted to, I could run stereo and get this huge stereo effect. We have 2 guitar players, so I don't usually need it. But yeah, that's how I use it. I think it's freaking amazing. I can still connect Bluetooth, so like here at my desk when I'm hooked up XLR into my mixer, into my computer, I can just go straight out of there, no problem. Still send my Bluetooth if I want to Bluetooth my phone to jam along or learn a song, something like that. Yeah, it's such a crazy cool pedal. Okay, so I'm going to take you through some sound samples now that GarageBand is recording, because I just did a bunch where I didn't hit record on GarageBand, so that's great. Anyways, running through MT15 clean channel. We'll just do bridge, pickup, and do some chords. Then I'm going to throw on the doubler so you can kind of hear that effect. We'll switch to distortion, then throw on the doubler, see how it sounds, do some lead stuff with it. And then we will run through some of the preloaded IRs that are in it. So anyways, here's a bridge pickup with some chords. Sounds like a clean amp. Now let's throw the doubler on. Sounds pretty good. Where I think it shines is on the gain channel. So let's switch it over to that, because I think you'll really hear the difference. Sounds good on the clean. Definitely, I miss it when it's gone, that's for sure. Going back to just this. It's just not the same. So let's go to the gain channel. Here's no doubler. Now, let's go ahead and switch the doubler on. And this is where this thing sounds killer. It just sounds so sweet. Then add some delay and some longer reverb, and it's crazy. I don't want to play lead without it. I mean, here's with the delay, but no double. Still sounds good, but it doesn't have that pizzazz. It's just so sweet. So, anyways, that's the doubler effect. I think it sounds great. If you send just a mono signal out, you can still use the doubler just out of a mono signal, but it just kind of sounds chorusy, and that's it. So it sounds way better when you're actually running 2 dedicated signals out of it. So let's go ahead and run through the IRs. That is the vintage 30 setting. Let's turn my delay off. Let's go to the clean. I feel like you can hear the differences pretty good on the clean. So here's the vintage 30 with the doubler on, I guess. Turn that off. Okay, now we will go to the greenback setting. This one's definitely a lot brighter. I feel like it's a little more clear to my ear. So, I don't know, I like that one. And then we'll go to the creamback. The creamback is my favorite. I think it sounds the best when you have gain going through it. So that's typically why I use it, because whenever I'm on the clean channel, I still usually have like a drive pedal on for my clean sound and just kind of roll the volume off. So I think this sounds the best. So. A little more subdued, not nearly as bright, kind of just gives it more of a flat EQ to my ears. I mean, I'm not like an absolute expert when it comes to that stuff. That's just what I hear. Back to the greenback. So that one's a lot more pokey. I like that roll off on the high end. So that's where I use it. So anyways, that's the KMA Machines Endgame pedal. I think it's freaking sick. I think it does way more than I need it for, but it also gives me way more options than I would get with just the HX Stomp or just the amp. It lets me blend both. Like right now, I just panned the volume on the HX Stomp all the way to the right, so it's just going to the Endgame. So I'm just going to my mixer and into my computer, and nothing's coming out of the cab, even though I still have the cab hooked up because that amp requires a load on it. That's the thing. Like, if you want to use an amp that doesn't have an XLR out on it and it doesn't have like load protection on it, and you still have to use a cab. This is perfect because the way that you run it with the 4 cable method, with an HX stomp and this combined, you can have a silent stage still. You can still turn your cabinet completely off and still have the look of a cabinet if needed, and then still run plenty of signal to front of house. So I think if you haven't already, you absolutely need to check out the KMA Machines Endgame. It's my favorite pedal, if you want to call it that, on my board, and I never even press the buttons on it once we start the gig, unless I want the doubler effect, which is rare, but for recording, it's chef's kiss. So anyways, hope you liked it. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I'm going to keep doing gear reviews on all the gear that I have, so if there's anything you want me to talk about, feel free to leave it in the comments. Let me know. Thanks.